Well, good evening and welcome, everyone, for another edition of Fans React Friday. I'm going to be hosting this evening. My name is Ben, in case you don't know, and I've got two very intelligent gentlemen to chat a few things with this evening. So, Dom, how are you, mate? Are you well?
I'm all right. How are you?
Yeah, I'm well, mate. I'm all right. Can't complain. I'm not sure the same could be said for Gary, though. Gary, how have you been doing? We know you're a bit under the weather.
Yeah. I've got the dreaded COVID, but I've checked with Boris, and he tells me you definitely can't get it through Streamlink or YouTube. So I think you're all right, lads. I'll take no responsibility if you get poorly in the next couple of days, though, just in case.
Yeah, well, we'll soon see. So, right, just go to the live chat. I think only Acacia's in there at the minute. So, good evening, Acacia. Hope you are okay. We'll just give it a little while for people to start sort of filing in and all of that good stuff. So, well, we better make a start, I guess. So, of course, the main talking point from the week that has just been in the world of Sunderland is a 1-0 win against Gillingham. Very late goal by Nathan Broadhead saved our skin. Dom, I'll start with you, mate. Did you watch the game? Did you go? And what were your thoughts of it?
I did, and I just want to put it out there. People tried to get me to leave early, and I stopped them, and therefore I prevented them from missing the goal of the game. There was my mate with us. He was like, "Oh, how are we going? This is at like 90+4." I turned around to him. I said, "No, look, I smell something." 30 seconds later, ball in the box, crowd goes wild. So it's unreal, really. But yeah, it was lovely just to see us. I couldn't tell you the last time we scored like a last-minute winner at home, to be honest. So it was just nice to have a bit of
a while, isn't it? You know, just sort of Fergie time and all of that. We don't really, never really.
Just felt like tension being released, didn't it? It just felt like, thank God for that.
I think there was so much riding on that game, weren't there? I think if we hadn't have picked up the 3 points, you know, just the point is not enough at this stage of the season. We need to start winning these games. And I was listening to the commentary in my in-laws' shed. I was just throwing some darts and had my earphones in, and I was like just standing there thinking, oh, in anticipation. And then when, you know, Barnsley said, oh, Broadhead scored, I was screaming and shouting in the garage. Oh, it was fabulous. Luckily, no one heard me, so that was the good thing, because I was screaming like a little woman at the time. But Gary, 1-0, big win. Did you watch the game or anything? You know what?
Yeah, I was there. I was sat in the north stand. I'd given up hope. I just couldn't see where it was coming from, to be honest. I mean, like Dom, the option of leaving early, I just don't like it. It's almost tempting fate, isn't it? But I just couldn't see it. I couldn't see where we were going to get anything from. I thought we struggled for long periods. I know people will talk about the possession, which I think was 80%. Neil reckoned we were clearly the best team. Probably wouldn't disagree with that. But they came and did, I thought, a very good job on us. And it was the first time we'd really got a quality ball in to the area, and at the same time had somebody attacking that ball. Because I think what happened is Broadhead almost blindsided their defender. Their defender, I think, was thinking it was going to bounce behind him and go out for a goal kick. And Broadhead really went for it. I think he ended up almost sort of like getting to it, sort of like at an angle, because he threw himself at it. First time we've done that properly all game. Just fantastic. I can't remember the last time we got a home last-minute winner like that. I've seen us obviously do it. We've had a few draws, haven't we, this season, where it's been a bit last-minute, and last season. But to get a winner, and you know, I don't know about everybody else, but I'm always watching the league table as it stands. And at that point, we jumped up, I think it was from 8th to 6th, it might have been, or 8th to 7th, just by getting those extra 2 points. So, yeah, this stage of the season, you know, that's all it takes, isn't it? It's fractional. If it'd been, you know, the other way around, we'd have been absolutely gutted. It really is fine margins. So we'll see what it does, you know, for the rest of the season. It might make all the difference. Just that, whatever it was, you know, second to score a goal.
Yeah, I mean, it's crunch time, isn't it? It's this sort of time of the season where every game is a must-win, especially if you're Sunderland at the minute. And it was just like you said, just relief, wasn't it, when that goal went in, and you thought, oh, because if you'd have seen 0-0 draw, you're probably thinking, oh, that's probably playoffs gone. Even though we've still got to play Oxford and sort of a few, in and around there, that could have been quite a dent in our playoff hope. But luckily, we came through, got the win. Obviously, Pritchard and Danny Batt returning. Obviously, you two were at the game. Dom, did any of them really impress you? Was it nice to see them back?
It was nice to see them back. I think when Pritchard got injured at Charlton, we were all a bit like we were a bit nervous, because if he was ruled out for the season, I think a lot of us would have been thinking, well, this could be curtains. But luckily it wasn't, and it wasn't too long. He was back. I think he made quite a positive impact. I'd say the same for Broadhead as well, obviously scoring the goal. I think it's just nice to see that even though we've had people who are injured and then been out of form, that they can just come back, and it's like they never left. Like, it doesn't take them time to adjust onto the pitch. I think almost everything they did was spot on, but obviously no one's perfect in that retrospect. I just think it's nice to know that they've come back in a positive manner, and we've managed to get the win through stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you mentioned Brody there. He just completely bypassed me. I don't know why, because he scored the goal. So, obviously he had that sort of 70 minutes, didn't he, a few weeks ago, and then we haven't seen him since until the last 20 minutes against Gillingham. Gary, Danny Batt, even Pritchard, sort of Broadhead, all these sort of returnees. Did you think that they made the difference, or do you think it was just sort of, business as usual?
I've been really critical of Bath, or Bart, however you pronounce it, particularly after the Bolton display, because I think it was absolutely horrendous then. And I really wondered about him. But him and Wright at the back last Saturday, I mean, they weren't really tested, but they were fairly solid. I was really nervous when we were going with just three men at the back, two of whom, weren't centre halves, Winchester and Sirkin. So I'm much happier with having a back four, particularly when we're going up the likes of Oxford and Plymouth ahead. So in that respect, I think that's actually a big thing to have him back. There's obviously a lot of experience between the two of them. So I think he, again, without being really tested, those two did good. Pritchard, one of the big things for me with Pritchard is to see him on the pitch talking to other players. He's clearly got an idea of how we should be playing. He's looking for the ball. When at one point, O'Nien played him a hospital pass, and I could see O'Nien almost like apologising, because he knows, Pritchard needs the ball to his feet, just on the edge of the area. I think he's I suspect, I don't know this for certain, but I think he's probably a big influence on the team and the mindset. Looks like he's got a winner's mentality to me. That I was shouting him out for captain a few weeks ago, and I'm a fan of him. So yeah, great to see them both back for me. And obviously, as we get towards the end of the season, having a squad, and big shout out to Neil on this. When he's made substitutions, he's made some belters, hasn't he? He did it against Fleetwood, brought players on who scored goals, and he did exactly the same last week. Embleton off the bench crosses it, Broadhead off the bench scores. So absolutely fair play to him. But if he's got quality on the bench, or he's got decent players on the bench, something different, he's got a chance to do that. So yeah, to me, lads, I'm a fan of Broadhead, fan of Pritchard, and having them in our matchday squad can only be a good thing, really, can't it? Particularly by the way, because I thought Stewart was a bit off it last week.
Yeah,
he was getting a bit bullied. The ref didn't really protect him. Maybe he's after travelling with Scotland. His head wasn't in it as much as some weeks. He seemed a bit weak at times. So yeah, we've relied on him a lot this season. So to have likes of Pritchard and Broadhead taking some of the weight off him, I think it's going to be massive. Long may it continue. The only one who frustrated me while I'm on a bit of a roll was Jack Clarke. Who was absolutely doing my treeing because he refuses to use his left foot. And, we're playing him on the left side. And if you're a fullback, you don't need to worry about doing anything apart from forcing him onto his left foot, because he's always going to cut back, and he cuts back so many times. It was good to see Sirkin getting forward and supporting him, did a couple of really good overlaps, but it's too predictable for me. We either put him on the right where he can use his best foot, maybe swap him and Roberts around, or to me, my decision, but my shout for tomorrow would be he gets dropped and we bring Broadhead in instead.
Yeah, I think I couldn't agree with you more. I think Clarke sort of, ever since that Lincoln game where he had, numerous chances, to score and didn't take advantage of any of them, and then sort of he seems like a bit of a one-trick pony out on that side, like you say, Gary. He's what he's always going to do. So I think you've got to swap him and Roberts, haven't you? So you've got the both of them sort of trying to cut inside. They can still whip a ball in, and then if they want to go for a shot, they can do. So I think you've got a bit more flexibility there. But, obviously Neil knows what he's doing and he wants them on them sides for a reason. Certainly one of them things, isn't it? But, I'll quickly pop in this question because I saw a lot of people sort of saying this on Twitter and all of this. Dom, I'll ask you this first, mate. So about Jack Clarke, if we were to, would you be happy if we were to sign him in the summer, do you think? Do you think he would be a good addition, or do you think it's one that Tottenham can have back?
I'd be happy. I won't lie. I think I get why everyone's frustrated with him, because I do agree there is some times where he looks like a one-trick pony out on the side that Neil's putting him on. I agree where I think they should be swapped, so he has the chance to cut inside, have a pop if he wants, because we know he can shoot. I think under Neil's mentorship, he's looked okay, and I think he's looked promising. And I wouldn't be upset if he signed permanently. It looks like we could bring him in, give him some time, because he's been given enough time to down in League One for Spurs to at least give him a look in to say, do we want him back or not? So it's completely up in the air whether we'll have a chance. I think if he goes out in the next few games and impresses us, I think it shouldn't be a question whether we do or at least attempt to sign him back.
Yeah, Chris Scott in the live chat here has made a good point. He says he's only ever been a right winger before he came here. So he's sort of,
there you go.
Is he playing out of position? Obviously he is. Is he finding it tough? Yes, he is. Then that's probably a little bit harsh on him, but at the end of the day, you're here to do a job and you've got to do what the manager says at the end of the day. So, Gary, I was chatting about this with my dad the other day, sort of about Jack Clarke, and he sort of said, he sort of reminds me a little bit of sort of Duncan Watmore when he was at Sunderland, because he was that sort of, as soon as Watmore got on the ball, he sort of knew what he was going to do. He was just going to put his head down and he was going to run. He wasn't going to look up. He was going to try and just beat the man. What do you think about sort of, if we had an option to get him, would you be happy? Would you be?
On current form, I wouldn't be very keen, to be honest. Just too frustrating. We've had so many players like this over the years, and they end up looking like luxuries because we don't get enough out of them. Watmore's a great example. People have written Watmore off, and he's obviously done really well at Middlesbrough when he's been used the right way, and he's got managers who trust in him. Jones last year looked as though he was going to be a world beater when he came. I like Diaku. I'd actually have Diaku in before Clarke on current form. He's got a bit more steel about him. He's a bit more unpredictable. What I would say about Clarke is he tracks back pretty well. Certainly did in the first half last week, and it might be the Spurs connection, but him and Sirkin, there is the signs of a promising partnership. Maybe if they continue together, that might be why he's on the left. For that reason alone. And Neil, like a lot of managers, talks about not being narrow, bringing players in. That might be partially to do with why he plays Clarke where he does. But I'd be thinking, why doesn't he just change it mid-match? Keep swapping them around. Because as far as I'm concerned, the fullback on the left, as soon as Roberts was near the ball, he was right up behind him, gave him no space to play whatsoever. And the guy on the right, I just think he knew exactly what Clarke was going to do. He wasn't threatened by his pace or by his ball control. Just kept forcing him back. And the thing about fast players and skillful players is great when they've got confidence, when they've got space, when the game's going quickly. Clarke, and it reminds me, trying to think of a comparison, but there's these wingers where it's not just they don't know what they're going to do with the ball, but the rest of the team don't know what they're going to do with the ball. Now, if you're Ross Stewart or anybody else for that matter, you've got to know when you're going to make your run. Are you going to the near post, far post? Are you holding back? What are you trying to do? And if you never know when this guy's going to put the ball in the box, it must be incredibly frustrating. What I'm saying is somebody like Clarke, to me, needs to be more dynamic. He needs to make his mind up early and stand or fall by his decision. But like a lot of young players, he wants too much time. He wants to cut back. He wants to think about it. And I think at any level of football, as soon as you do that and you let defenders get back behind the ball, you've just made your job and your team's job so much harder. I was talking to my son about it the other day, and I said, if you compare him with somebody like McGeady, again, it could be frustrating. I remember him being frustrated when Parkinson first came in, kept cutting back, never sure when it was going to put in. But what Johnson got McGeady doing was putting it in, basically him and Wyke working in unison. So McGeady knew when to put it in. Wyke knew when to make the run behind the defence or to the near post. And hey, presto, Wyke was scoring for fun at one point, wasn't it? And to me, that was all about timing. And we haven't got that at the moment. People don't know when to make the run. Obviously, the goal last week came from Embleton's cross. We knew what was coming. That's what Embleton does. And Broadhead knew to make the run. That's what made the difference. We need more of that in the last third because we struggle to unlock teams, and it's been like that against Crewe, Fleetwood, and last week against Gillingham. And we're going to have it again against Cambridge, Shrewsbury, and possibly Morecambe. Those are absolute must-wins, and so we're going to have to learn how to unlock it because teams, as we know, defend deep against us.
I mean, they certainly do. I mean, you sort of mentioned it a little bit earlier, Gary. We had 80% of the possession. We had 25 shots, 522 passes. That's on them alone, it sounds like we dominated the game. Where in reality, I remember Benno sort of talking about the match just a little bit after, and he said, "Well, how many chances really did we create? Not a lot." And sort of watching back the highlights, I thought, yeah, he's probably right. I mean, we dominated the game, but I feel like we did just get a tiny bit lucky with the goal. I mean, Neil Harris set out Gillingham very sort of sit back, didn't he? Time wasting, almost like that 5-5-0 like Atletico did the other night in the Champions League against City. But
I just said, Ben, I timed it. That I've got a friend who's a Sheffield Wednesday fan, and we've been talking similar problems. Teams are going to Hillsborough to do the stadium alike, time wasting, ref doesn't get a hold of it, whatever. The very first evidence of time wasting from Gillingham was 3 minutes 50 seconds when they were arsing about with the throw-in. That's how early it started, where they're messing around. So the fact that we scored in time added on, given because of time wasting, at least sort of like brought some justice at the end. But yeah, it's got pretty ridiculous, I think, this season.
I think it certainly has, and especially when we sort of get people coming to the stadium alive, don't we? It's been getting out of hand recently. But I'll just go into the live chat quickly. We got Lauren Kenny's here. Hello. Brady Lamin. Hello, Brady. Joanne Punchin's in there, our moderator. Hello, Joanne. Ethan Dixon. All right, Ethan. DJ Sizzler Watson. Evening. Kev. We got Christopher. Callum. So we got Matthew's in there. Hello, Matthew. Hope you're all right. So yes, we shall move on swiftly. I just wanted to talk a little bit sort of about our defence and sort of really, the defence. It starts with the goalie really. So sort of Anthony Patterson and sort of it's been probably a bit of a strange season for him, sort of being at Notts County, then coming back, then going back again, then coming back again. and now we sort of had an extended run in the team and seems to be looking quite the keeper by all, sort of accounts. 2 goals conceded in 7 games. Obviously, you can point that a bit to the back four, maybe the type of teams that we have played. But at the end of the day, you're in there to do a job, and he certainly has been. I mean, Dom, what's been your sort of impression of Patterson after these sort of 7-8 games?
I think recently he's really come into his own, because roughly around the middle of the season, when he was like, it looked like we were just about to send him back to knots, and he was kind of just here for the crack. You could see he wasn't really coming out of his shell. He wasn't really talking much to the back line. But I think since Neil's come in, he's looked a lot more confident as a goalkeeper. He's starting to, when he's coming out, he's not like thinking of tracking back. He's actually making very good saves. He's made some saves which I think has personally kept us in games. I think when it's come to pressure moments, I think Patterson is a lot better than he was at the beginning of the season. And especially when that Blackpool game right at the beginning, where he pulled off some absolute worldie of saves, it looks like we've got that goalkeeper like on a permanent basis in Patterson. So hopefully when it comes to next season, we won't be flogging him out on loan. I think he's trying to implement his place as number 1 now. I know we've got like Hoffman's only on loan, but I think he's trying to say, look, I don't bother getting another keeper in to replace me in the summer.
And I think he's certainly making a case for himself any time. I mean, he's certainly, since he came back, sort of from Wickham, obviously, conceded 3 goals in that game. But, he certainly had moments sort of in the beginning, but now he's certainly shored up. Looks like a real sort of prospect. I think he's only about 23 or 24, isn't he? So in keeper's terms,
less than that, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think he's a bit younger. Yeah, I could be wrong, but I think he might only be 22.
And you think for a keeper, 22 is like a baby, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So that can only be a good thing. I mean, Gary, I'll come to you. I mean, sort of, obviously Hoffman and all of this. Obviously Hoffman will probably go back, and Patterson's, he's had to play well to keep his place in the team. Do you think that he's been merited with that sort of good performances, and that's why he's been in?
I do. And as you start talking about him, then he's almost like an afterthought. But I mean that in a complimentary way.
Yeah,
he's an afterthought because he's a shoo-in at the moment. There's no argument, is there? He's our number 1. Obviously, Burge can't play. The rumour I heard about Hoffman is that if he plays any more games, we have to pay a fee, and if we're not keeping him, we're not prepared to do that. Don't know what's gone on behind the scenes there, but he did seem to lack confidence. I mean, he had a nightmare at Bolton, as most of them did, and we've barely seen him since. But on the other hand, Patterson, I'd heard he was doing really well at Notts. A couple of games, I mean, let's be honest, he's gone from under 21s to conference or national league, as I think it's called now, to playing first team in front of 30,000. He's taken a couple of quick steps. He's gone from third choice to first choice really quickly. So there's bound to be a little bit of nervousness, particularly with so many changes in front of him with the back four. But since I think it was the Crewe game, he looked a couple of times when I saw Wright having a go at him. But what I've seen since then, I mean, certainly on crosses, I think he's been excellent. Seen him come for crosses, and I thought, is he going to take this? But although he's not the tallest guy, he seems to have really good reach. And so he's been good on them. I don't think he's been tested too much against some of the teams we've played. But what they have done, and there's been a couple of one-on-ones, I remember against Crewe, where he's come out very confidently. Looked good against Wigan, I seem to recall as well. So he's clearly getting better. And I personally love it when a young lad or an academy product comes through. I think it's brilliant. I think we've had some really good keepers down the years. And hopefully he's making the spot his own. I think it'd be absolutely brilliant, and so far so good for the lad. Tomorrow might be a bit of a different game for him. Known for scoring goals at home. I think they'll push us at the back. But like I was saying earlier, we've got Wright and Batt in front of him now. So hopefully that experience will help him. And the other thing is, of course, we talked a lot earlier in the season about goalkeepers who are confident at the feet. Some of his kicking's been good as well. Not always, but he's managed to find the wingers with quite a few kicks as well. So yeah, it's been all good. Look, confidence is massive for any position. I think that's particular to being a keeper. So hopefully he keeps getting clean sheets and he keeps getting playing in the first team and with some experience around him. Finish this season, start the next as our number one. That'd be great.
I mean, it certainly would. I mean, Matthew just put a comment in there, which I'll put up. He's saying, if Hoffman plays 25, we have to sign him. He's played 24 with Patterson doing okay. There's no reason to play him, which is pretty reasonable. I think, obviously depending on the fee, if it's, maybe $1 million or above, we think, well, is he really worth it when we've got, quite a young gem in Patterson at the minute. So it's certainly one of them ones. But he has been fantastic. I mean, I must admit, like you say, sometimes he is a bit shaky, but he's a young lad at the end of the day, and he's been doing surprisingly well with how much sort of change he's had to come with, and then being the third choice to now the first choice, like you said, Gary. It takes a bit of adapting, and even just playing with that senior team with the likes of Bailey Wright and Danny Bath, whoever it is. These are experienced veterans that demand the basics, and sometimes we've had keepers over the years that can't even do the basics. Lee Camp, for example. So it's certainly one of them. He's certainly done well, and let's just hope that we can keep hold of him in the summer, because you never know, there might be a couple of high clubs interested in him. Anyway, I won't bug you. So actually, sort of speaking on Bailey Wright, I have got a little thing on him here. He has sort of come into the team. He was a little bit he was in and out for a while, wasn't he? And especially over these last 7, 8 games, he's really sort of come into his own. I mean, Dom, do you think he's sort of turned it around a little bit? Do you think he's been sort of the leader on the pitch that we've needed?
I think he's definitely contributed to that. I think all season we've kind of not have like this set back line of who we can trust. I think in the last few games, since Wright's come back, I think he's been like one of the people you have to say, well, he has to start. Especially with Doyle's dip in form. It went from Doyle's our main man at the back to Wright's our main man at the back. We obviously knew from seasons prior that we know that he can defend, and we know that he wants to give it 110. So I'm pretty sure, like, I might be wrong on this, but I think this is the best he's been at the back in quite a while. Well, especially for Sunderland, I think this is some of the best performances he's pulled out the bag. I think him and Bath, or Bat, however you say it, looked very competent on Saturday, and I think they look very tight. I think he made the same with Shamajli, and when he's been played on his own, he's looked okay, but I think he needs someone next to him to just help him out.
Yeah, I think, and obviously, with Wright, he's been, when Neil's been playing 3 at the back, he's had Winchester and Sirkin next to him. Winchester, we bought him as a midfielder from Forest Green, and Sirkin is, he's a left back, but I don't think they've really played that often as that sort of 3, centre back. So, surely for him, Gary, that's probably been a bit of test of his character, to sort of try and sort of get these lads up to speed and that sort of thing. But, 2 goals conceded in 7 games with, that sort of makeshift back 3. And then obviously we played with the 4 at the back against Gillingham with Danny Bath. He's certainly, having a bit of an influence, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. He's had a funny career with us, really, because when he came in, I thought he looked absolutely superb. Was out with injury, came back and looked absolutely awful. Certainly in Johnson's first season with us, where he was entrusted to bring the ball out. Times he just looked clueless, kept giving the ball away. Maybe still carrying injury, I don't know. But this season, since he's come in and reclaimed his place, I think generally he's been very good. I think he's 28 now, something like that. Probably looking at the World Cup. He'll want to be playing regularly ahead of the going to the World Cup with Australia. As players get a bit older, I think taking responsibility on the pitch, not only for the younger lads around them, but in terms holding that line, and also with Sunderland, playing out, deciding how we're going to bring the ball out from the keeper. Maybe he's responding to that. Maybe he's getting a bit more responsibility. I think there's obviously a big difference in styles between Neil and Johnson, and probably centre half is where it shows most. We've gone from Flanagan and Doyle as our main two, and they were constant first half of the season. And I think from here on in, we'll probably find that the main two are Bath and Wright. And I think that's sort of like to do with style. We're stronger at the back because of it. We're more physical at the back because of it. But they're not great on the ball. And it seems to me that he's entrusting the full-backs a bit more to get forward with the ball, which is probably why Winchester's keeping his place. Because they're not the most skillful of players in terms of their passing. But we're keeping clean sheets, aren't we? I can't remember what the exact numbers were, but as somebody said, we conceded more goals in one game under Lee Johnson's last match than we've done over X amount of games with Neil. So again, it just shows the difference in style and the difference in mentality. And as long as we're keeping clean sheets, we're in with a chance, aren't we? So we're solid at the back, and whatever you think about how the game should be played, you've got to get that bit right. I was a big fan of Sam Allardyce. First thing he did when he came to the club, stopped conceding daft goals, and it meant getting players, taking less chances, a bit less pretty at the back, no nonsense. But we started to defend with our lives, and you've got to do it. You've got to do it if you're going to win football matches. Damn sight easier to concede a goal than it is to score one. So that's one thing about Neil that I do really like, and Wright has to take a fair bit of credit for it as well.
I think he does, and I think Neil does as well. Certainly since he's come in, he's done exactly what he said he would do, which is tighten up the defence. Whatever sort of centre back pairing he wants to play, usually they've been coming through and doing the job. Certainly with Neil at the minute, it seems that he's sort of preferring sort of experience sort of in that sort of main core when you think about the two centre halves and maybe that midfielder that's sort of sitting a bit deeper. So with that, I'm going to come on to a bit of a scapegoat now.
I know where you're going with this.
in Corey Evans. I must admit, I have been, I think I've said it on air a couple of times, that Corey Evans, I have given him a lot of stick, saying he's not that sort of vocal captain and, sort of what's he doing on the pitch and all of this. But sort of when I was, going through some of the things over tonight, 2 goals in 7 games, since Corey Evans has been playing, he has been sort of taking up that position. He has been, sitting back. He has been doing the dirty work, even though, he's not very sort of showy over these past, sort of 4 or 5 games. You see his name on the team sheet and you go, oh, God, what's he doing? But then actually, all the games that I've listened to, Benno and Nick Barnsley on the commentary, they said that he's doing a fantastic job. And he's just linking that sort of play, being there to drop in if he needs to, or then to bring the ball out and give them to the likes of, O'Nien, Matete, Neil, whatever. So I do have to give him a bit of credit, even though I was slagging him off a little bit. I do think he has done a decent job. Dom, do you agree? Do you not?
I tell you what, on Saturday, I actually think he played very well. And it was genuinely, I kid you not, it was an eye-opener. I was literally sat there, I was seeing playing some, he was pushing up, getting in good positions. He was playing some good balls. I was sat there looking, I was like, what? Obviously, the stats will say that he either plays good or play bad, but to me, I think that was genuinely the best he's played since the beginning of the season, because I think he looked quite well set out when he first came in, and then after that embarrassment at Rotherham, he didn't really look the same, and then it kind of just looked like he was going just downwards with the fans. But to be honest, I think he played really well on Saturday, and if he continues to play like that, I won't I won't say a bad thing about him ever again, but honestly, I think he is, without saying, the most controversial character at the club at the moment. Well, in the dressing room, at least. I can name a few off the pitch. But I think it's either a thing of you either think he's 50-50 or you absolutely hate him. And to be honest, at the moment, I'm swaying towards 50-50, but hopefully, obviously, I'd never want someone who plays for us to do badly. So hopefully he can pick up where he left off on Saturday and continue with the good performances.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're pretty spot on there, mate. Sort of, you're either 50-50 with him or you don't like him at all. I mean, that one was for Matt. I know Matt said it in our chat. He said, got to talk about Corey Evans again, for like the third or fourth week in a row. But he's one of them talking points. It's one of them that just sort of ever evolves, But Gary, are you in agreement with Dom and I, or are you going to be?
Yeah, very much. I'm a 50-50 on him. He can frustrate me, but there's also times when I think he does stuff that is unappreciated. But then he's in that kind of role, really. Remember, way back, was it 98 when France won the World Cup, and somebody called, I think it was Didier Deschamps, the water carrier, because basically the criticism was all he did was carry the ball from defence to the more skillful players and then let them do all the hard work. But since then, and since players like Claude Makelele, and we've got it now with players like Kante, actually that's a really, really important role. Sitting in front of the back four or back three, as we've had at times, and acting as that pivot in the middle. It's a really important role, and we've had players do it really well at Sunderland. Cattermole under Poyet, I thought, became a different player when he was given that kind of responsibility. And we've had some people decent in that position, and we've had some bloody awful footballers there as well. George Dobson comes straight to mind, if I dare mention that name. Put myself off by doing that. I thought I managed to upset myself just by the mere mention of his name. At the start of this, well, not the start of the season, the middle of the season, I'm thinking, what has Evans brought to us that Josh Scowen didn't bring to us? I thought Scowen did a lot of stuff that was unseen and unappreciated. Might even say a little bit about similar to Max Power. But yeah, lately, I think he's got to take some credit. Teams haven't been breaking, or not too often, against us. Because when Neil came in, you might recall he made a big thing about the goals we were conceding. The two against MK Dons come straight to mind. There were teams playing us on the break, and as soon as they went through the middle, we had nothing. And I think we were probably playing Evans too far up at that time. And by dropping him in, either behind Matete or O'Nien or Neil, we've just looked a bit more solid. And I think he's been given that responsibility. Don't try and do too much going forward. It's not what you're good at. Read the play, sit, let other lads do the hard work, the skillful stuff. And I do remember the game. I think it was Crewe. We only had three men at the back, and whenever Wright went forward for set pieces, it was always Evans who was dropping in. As soon as any sign of a breakaway, Evans was dropping straight into that position. And again, a bit like Wright, telling the other lads, the young lads like Sirkin, what he needed from them in terms of support. So that's probably the stuff he does that, we don't appreciate as fans. He's putting himself about a bit more. He's clearly a confidence player. And I suspect Neil talking him up today in the press conference has partially to do with him, trying to build Evans up as one of his most important players between now and the end of the season. And one of my worries about this squad, particularly under Johnson, was their age, their average age, and how many young players we had. Well, now we're talking about that mainstay in the middle, central defence and deep midfield. We're talking about players like Bath and Wright and Evans. There's a lot of experience there. We're going to get into the playoffs, so hopefully he can get promoted. That experience is going to really count. So it's probably quite wise in terms of Neil choosing those players and letting them get some regular game time together. So yeah, he's the worry for me earlier on in the seasons. He wasn't taking responsibility. When we had Doyle bringing the ball out, 2 or 3 games, we had Dan Neil looking for the ball, still a very young player, willing to make mistakes and got slaughtered for it when he did. But we had Evans was hiding at that point for me. He wasn't putting himself about. And so I think I suspect Neil's given him a bit more confidence, told him to stick to what he's good at. That's probably breaking up play and dictating, but without doing anything too flash. So if that's the case, fair play to Alex Neil for identifying that. But yeah, let's be honest, we were getting caught on the break all too often early in the season, not middle of the season, and something's changed. And I think you've got to put some of that down to Evans' as change of role.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely bang on, Gary. I mean, like you said, that experience, that sort of cog 3 there, the 2 centre backs and the CDM. I think they are probably going to maybe carry us through to the playoffs, hopefully. But certainly that experience, I don't think there's many other teams, in and around the playoffs that have got that sort of, decent a 3, if you like. I mean, obviously, Evans gets his stick and Danny Batten had a pretty rough debut, didn't he? But they're all sort of coming into their own now, and Neil's certainly got them playing, how he wants them to play, which seems to be, go in there, do your job, do what you're good at, and, keep a clean sheet. Because, I mean, if I was, the players, I don't think I'd want to be on the end of a telling off from Alex Neil. I think he looks quite a terrifying character to get a bit of stick off. But
he's pretty uncompromising, isn't he?
He is, yeah.
Conferences, it's a straight answer. We do this as a club. We do it time and time again. We move from manager to manager, and we seem to go to polar opposites. Yeah, I remember us going from O'Neill to Di Canio. It's almost like similar. We've gone from Johnson, he's got all the buzzwords and everything, to Alex Neil, who gives you one-word answers. So strange, but there you go.
Yeah, it's strange. Refreshing though, I think. I think certainly for some of them players, I think they do need a little bit of a sort of a kick up the backside and just a bit of straight talking, which I don't think Johnson really had that in his demeanour or repertoire. Maybe not as often as Neil. So it's certainly been a change for them, but I mean, it's certainly been working over the last 7 games, isn't it? So fair play to Alex Neil. Dom, do you want him to stay?
I do. I really do. I think it's obviously a hard seat to sit in when you think about it. Over the last few years, we think we've got it right, and then obviously we've been seen to prove wrong, or we have had the right man and someone takes him away from us, the FA. But the less on that, the better, because we're a million miles away from that now. I think a lot of people give stick for it not being pretty football, like the football Johnson had us playing a while back. But to be honest, I think when you're in the situation we're in, you just need to win games, no matter if it's ugly, no nonsense. If we're playing like we're prime Brazil or prime Stoke, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day, as long as we're winning the games, we're getting the points on the board. As long as they're able to do that with a convincing squad, I think that's all we should really be happy about. And I think a lot of fans think the same. I know a lot of people don't like Neil's style of play, but personally, I think if it does the job, it does it for me.
Yeah, I think you've got to be happy with that. I think all we want as fans is to see the team do well and win games, and hopefully get promoted at the end of it. So I don't think too many people would disagree with you there, Dom. I mean, Gary, what do you think? Is Neil the man?
He's I don't think of the word, a very sort of pragmatic manager for me. If he'd had us for a full season, I think we would have seen a different man, maybe. I can't help but thinking this whatever it is, 4 or 5 months we've got him is as much about him finding out about us as it is about us finding out about him. if we keep winning football matches, no matter how we do it, you'll start to see better footballers because confidence is so big. And, you know, we've all seen that over the years. And for some of the younger players, I think they'll come out of their shells a little bit. Experienced players will remember what they're good at. So I think if we'd had him for a full season, different discussion. Downside to that, there's times when this football reminds me of Parkinson's football.
Yeah.
Now it's uninspiring. The first 80 minutes against Crewe and the first 90 minutes against Gillingham, for me, were absolutely awful. We didn't look as though we knew how to break teams down. The crosses were terrible. We weren't getting down the bylines. We just looked clueless. We were cautious. And we struggled for long periods against teams who make it difficult for us. You know, it becomes a war of attrition. And the pressure's on us in front of 30,000 to create and do stuff. We're the team at the top, they're the team at the bottom. And it's not fun to watch. I'd much rather watch a Lee Johnson team. But, you know, all we'll remember at the end of the season is whether we get in that top six or not, or get promoted. If we don't make top six, and by the way, I think it's going to be incredibly tight.
Oh yes,
that's when the post-mortem will start, and people will look at the sacking of Johnson and letting Flanagan go and the carry on we had over Keane and Defoe and all the rest of it. I think at this moment in time, we're all, speak for everybody, but I think we're all sat here thinking, if it gets us over the line, we don't care. We don't care who it is who's at the helm and how he does it. Just get us over the bloody line, because we're all, frankly, sick of this division and some of the stuff that goes with it. You know, the thought of playing Forest Green Rovers next season as equals, you know, is the stuff of nightmares in my mind. And the days out, you know, we've had some great days out, but, you know, you can only go to places like Accrington so many times and see it as a novelty. When it starts to become the norm, it wears off a bit. So, yeah, what I'm getting at is I think, you know, we're all giving Neil some patience and some slack just to do what he has to do. But there's got to be a rethink in the summer about where we go next, because we've almost fallen into this position. And Speakman's big master plan and strategy looks a bit threadbare at the moment. So, I'm with Alex Neil. I'll go with him. Like I said earlier about Allardyce, he was the ultimate pragmatist. Stop conceding, get a few wins, and, you know, the confidence will come. So, you know, keep it going. It's strange, isn't it? Because out of the 4 seasons we've been down here, we had a season interrupted in March by COVID. So we're in a position where we're kind of guaranteed the playoffs, and we're still in with a shout at the top 2. So it was a different mentality. It's kind of weird that the best we can hope for is the playoffs, but even then, there's no guarantees. The playoffs are not good enough, but at this stage, you take it because it's about all we can hope for. So, yeah, I'm a bit in limbo, to be honest. I could do with us getting to the end of May, so I don't know whether to laugh or cry about the season. It's been a proper soap opera.
It certainly has, but the soap opera that is Sunderland, isn't it? I mean, if this season had been on Netflix, it would have certainly been a very interesting watch. I mean, that whole January window and then Defoe leaving, that would be quite interesting, wouldn't it? And then behind the scenes at the 6-0 and the 5-0 at Rotherham, and, you know, but who knows? We might get one next season because we might be playing Everton in the Championship. So,
yeah, that's your choice. Could be Everton, could be Forest Green Rovers.
Yeah, Everton, Forest Green. You know.
Season ticket, by the way.
This is one of them, isn't it? But,
try telling someone that like 10 years ago that you have the choice of playing either Everton or Forest Green, and it's not Everton's not in the Prem. Unbelievable.
I had a frightening thought the other day. I can't remember how I got into the topic with somebody, but I was talking about teams we're up against now, and I'm showing my age here, by the way. I'm playing the old man's card. So when I started watching football, Wycombe weren't in the Football League. Wigan weren't in the Football League. I'd never even heard of Forest Green Rovers, Cheltenham. We're playing Morecambe last game of the season in a must-win. The only time I'd seen Morecambe play football before this season was in an FA Cup first-round match against a West Yorkshire Village team called Emley. There was about 300 biggest game of the season. I'm not kidding. Two tiny clubs. I mean, I'm talking about 25 years ago, maybe here, and now we're playing Morecambe as equals. And honestly, I can't take it anymore.
Well,
I'm about to flip.
Even Sunderland aside, look at Luton. They might be Premier League next year. They were conference like a decade ago. It's mental how football changes.
It is, isn't it? How football's evolved, isn't it? You think about Man City before the money, and getting beat 9-1 off Middlesbrough, and then now look at them, absolutely dominating for years.
While I'm on my soapbox, I use Chelsea as an example. In the 80s, Chelsea were a yo-yo club. They were up and down. They were no better than Sunderland. Okay, they were in London. They'd had a bit of success in the early 70s. But Chelsea were a fairly average, second-rate London club. You might talk about them alongside where Crystal Palace are now, maybe. They're up for sale and people are talking billions.
Yeah.
my mind can't take how Sunderland came to be worth whatever it was, 25 million, wherever they got this for in the end, probably even less. And yet Chelsea are this amazing thing. Just my brain can't take it.
It is a bit mind-boggling, isn't it? How sort of clubs have changed, and where you look at old teams now. I mean, you just need to look in the league at the other teams, don't you? Sort of in and around Ipswich, Bolton, Sheffield Wednesday. Big clubs, with massive history, find themselves in the third tier of English football, don't they? But that was a bit of a depressing segment, wasn't it, Gary? So thank you for bringing that up. We had to have something from you, Gary.
I'll go hide the kitchen knives before I do anything else. I think.
Yeah. Well, so I mean, we've got about sort of eight minutes left. We'll sort of touch on. I didn't realise we've actually got 2 games in the space of a week. I didn't realise that Shrewsbury, we're playing them on Friday. So, but I'll touch on Oxford, obviously, tomorrow away. Massive game, isn't it? I mean, it's certainly probably the biggest game of the season so far. I mean, we've been saying that probably for the last 3 or 4 games, haven't we? But it just feels like, where we are and where Oxford are, that this one just, it means so much more, doesn't it? They do have a good record at home. I think they've only lost 3 games all season, 17 undefeated. So it's certainly been a tough place to play away. Dom, I'll start with you, mate. Are you optimistic? But
in all honesty,
it's got to be a must-win, isn't it?
Terrified. I think when you look at where everyone is, I know I always preach about focus on your own game, don't look where everyone else is in the table. But in this case, when you look at how tight this promotion race is, Rotherham are 3rd now. So it's literally anyone's league. It is incredible to think that any of these teams who are fighting for the playoffs could be going in with literally anyone. I think Oxford will want it just as much as we will. But obviously, as you said, they've got that home form that does back their favour. It is an awkward place to go. I think they are going to put everything behind it. I'd like to think we're going to put everything behind it as well. If we can manage to do what we've failed to do in the last few games, and that's finish with chances and actually pull the trigger. There's been the Lincoln game, the Charlton game, even last Saturday comes to mind of where we've looked unreal. And then when it comes to getting into a shooting position, for instance, Patrick Roberts seems to be the most popular person to be doing this, just getting into a great chance and then just deciding not to shoot. It's mind-boggling. And when you think about where we need to be, especially in a tight promotion race, goal difference could be everything. So we need to be scoring as many as we can. Obviously, it goes without saying, it is the goals that make the difference in a game of football. It's going to be a very awkward and very scary 90 minutes, I reckon, in the league. And when you look at where everyone else is in that game week, it seems that everyone is playing teams in and amongst the relegation zone. You've got MK Dons playing Wimbledon, Plymouth's playing Burton. Wycombe's playing Gillingham. Rotherham's playing Charlton. So it is. I would love to say, well, if we win, we could go up to any. But to be honest, when everyone else is playing relegation fighters, I honestly couldn't tell you where this. I'm looking at the table now, and I think it could look completely different or exactly the same come this time tomorrow. I think it's going to be very interesting to see how every team, especially us and Oxford, go into it and how we approach it, because there is no margin for error now. It's just too late for that.
Yeah, spot on. I think it's certainly so much to play for, sort of at both ends of the table, isn't it? Obviously Rotherham were cruising at one point and now they're third. I don't think anybody really saw that coming, and Wigan are top, MK Dons second. MK Dons, they were right down at one point, weren't they? Like proper mid-table, and then just sort of build steady results. And now, doing
it's
what
the Connor Wickham effect.
We could have done. Well, it could be, but they did make some good signings, MK Dons, so they are a good team. Certainly for this division as well, alongside a few of us. Gary, it's a must win, isn't it? It's a must win.
It's a must not lose for me, and I'm saying that because I think it's about denying Oxford as much as it is about us taking the points. They're below us, aren't they? They've got some tough games. I can see Oxford falling by the wayside. They've lost 2 in a week. For them, it's a must-win. Let's put it that way. And I think if we can deny them that, then I'd be happy with that personally. Looking at our games, we've got 6 left. There's 3, clearly very tough games. There's Oxford away, Plymouth away, Rotherham at home. And then the other 3, you've got to be looking at the other 3. Cambridge, Shrewsbury, and Morecambe has been wins.
Yeah.
But as Don was saying, actually, if you look around, there's no easy games because Gillingham still got a chance of staying up. They'll be fighting. Wimbledon against MK Dons. Weirdly, that's a derby match, isn't it? For them, it's a big match for Wimbledon. Could save their season by derailing MK Dons tomorrow. Burton have got 4 games between now and the end of the season against teams in the top 8. So Burton, who are on a terrible run of form, could have quite a big say on who finishes in the top 6. I think Wycombe have got a couple of tough games, but they're both at home. I personally think they'll get top 6. The ones to me we're trying to catch is obviously we're trying to get ahead of Sheffield Wednesday because we're nose to nose with them. But I think Plymouth, their last 4 games, and I can't remember what order they come in, but they've got us, they've got Wigan. Their last game of the season is MK Dons, which could be a game they both need to win to get where they need to be. And I think they might have Wycombe as well.
I think they've got a really I think they've definitely got the worst fixtures, sort of out of the top 7 coming up. So
I think we could catch them. I think if when you're talking about must wins, if we can get a point tomorrow, but then go to Home Park on Easter Monday and win at Plymouth, I think we have done the last 2, maybe 3 seasons, then I'd be absolutely delighted with that. That could set us up for the playoffs. And again, I know somebody who supports Wednesday. The thought of the Sunderland Wednesday final at Wembley, I think, would be absolutely incredible. The atmosphere would be superb.
It would.
Fantastic sets of fans. No, it would sell out very, very easily. When you compare it to the 30,000 in the Sunday.
That was embarrassing.
Oh, absolutely. Kind of hideous. But it could be, and I'm slagging other clubs off here, and I don't care. It could be MK Dons against Wycombe in the playoff final. Struggling to get 35,000, or it could be Sunderland against Wednesday. I know which one I would rather be at. So yeah, look, I don't care that much about Wednesday. I need us to get over the line, and I don't care which position it is. We've got to be in the mix at the end of the season. But yeah, it is. By the way, what Don was saying about goal difference, I think Plymouth's is about 8 or 9 better than ours at the moment. Yeah, it could come down to that. It really
We're
could.
on 19, they're on 27.
Yeah, and I've got this horrible feeling that we get to the end of the season and those games at Rotherham and Bolton and Portsmouth will come back to bloody haunt us yet again. So I'm hoping it doesn't come to that. But I'd take a draw tomorrow. Ideally, if other team, Wednesday we've got to go to Bolton. That won't be easy, as we know. And a lot of teams have got to play each other. So I'm hoping others drop points as much as it's about what we do now.
Yeah, I think very reasonable, Gary, to be honest. Now that you've said that little bit there, I think actually I would probably take a point. I think, it's like you say, I think it could be just a must not lose. I think if we go there and, it could be typical Sunderland to get beat 2 or 3-0, couldn't it? And
all the good work's undone then, isn't it, really?
Yeah. All these last 7 games where it's been so consistent and all of this could just go to pot, couldn't it? But we're hoping not. We're hoping for a Sunderland win, but I think we will. I'd certainly take a draw. I mean, to be honest, it's certainly one of them. And then quickly, sort of just before we end, we've got Shrewsbury at home next Friday. I mean, Dom, it should be an easy 3 points, shouldn't it? I think they've only won 3 games away this season out of 21.
One of them was against Rotherham, though.
It was. Yes. So
yeah, good point.
However, when it comes to the playoff rivals, they don't seem to do fairly well. They do get the odd result here and there, but this season, realistically, they have struggled against the big teams. So hopefully we can take what I'd like to imagine is a win on Saturday, well, tomorrow, and then bring it in to this time next week, and hopefully we will be celebrating a win in a couple of hours time. But who knows?
Yeah, who knows? And like Gary was saying about this sort of opera season that is Sunderland, it would just be in typical fashion for it to just all come tumbling down when things were looking so good, wasn't it? But I mean, Gary, what do you think? I mean, it'd be nice to put about 4 or 5 past them, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I thought about the last couple of matches. I thought, if we get a few here, then it'll actually give us a lot of confidence and we'll suddenly start getting up ahead of steam that we need at the end of the season. We've not been that convincing, which is why I think we're all sat here kind of in two minds, really, about how confident we can really be. But as I've already said, Shrewsbury at home is just a given. We've got to win, and I'm acutely aware that Steve Cotterill coming back to the Stadium of Light. They'll do what the last 3 teams have done to us. They'll frustrate. They'll make it difficult. Got a lot of respect for Steve Cotterill and the job he's done at this kind of level. It's not a given, but if it means another 95th minute goal and 3 points, who cares? But of course, by the same token, we'll have one eye on Plymouth 3 days later. And I think it's Cambridge at home. But certainly for me, Shrewsbury and Cambridge games, we've got to win them. We've got to win them. And, I'd like to see us start to win a bit more convincingly, because I think it's not just about getting in the playoffs, is it? We need to we know from last season where we fell into the playoffs very late, you almost knew the players that didn't have the confidence. And we might get tripped up by Blackpool, which is, what happened there with the form team. I would like us to be the form team going into the playoffs just for a change and feel as though we've got some momentum rather than just struggling over the line and just not knowing what we're going to get. But I kind of said all along that when we do get out of this division, we'll make it bloody difficult. Well, that's as good a prediction as I've got, because we've certainly done that this season, haven't we? We're always going to do it the hard way, so maybe it's just a precursor to that. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed, absolutely. So, Dom, score prediction for tomorrow.
Oh God, I think we could either be looking at the Lincoln game where it's just going to be end to end but no goals to show for it, or we're looking at the Wickham game where it's just going to be goals galore. I think with both teams fighting for their lives, I honestly can't see either winning. I think, as much as it pains to say it, I think it's going to be points dropped from both. I genuinely see this game ending in a draw. So I'm going to But you know what? I'm going to be positive. I'm going to go with my heart and not my head. And I'm going to say 2-1 to Sunderland. Hopefully.
Now,
Hopefully.
that's a good man, Dom. That is a good choice.
This is really, I'm really struggling here.
That is the positivity that we need on this channel. Especially when we've got a man who is down here who is sometimes very not.
He's fucking laughing at us for faking company.
Can I just say in my defence?
Yeah, no, of course, yeah.
You see, I have the little conversation Dom's had with himself there. He said, I can't see either team winning. I can see this, that, and the other. There's only one possible outcome, and that's a draw. But his conclusion is to say Sunderland's going to win.
I've got to be blind. I've got to be blind.
I have exactly those same conversations, but by the time
I've put the Sunderland goggles on.
Yeah.
I've been watching them too long. I can't do it anymore. The blind plate has run dry. I mean, I do often predict a draw in this division, and it's partially through having to watch us under Jack Ross. I can only see a draw tomorrow. The question is whether it's 1-1 or 2-2 for me. I think Matty Taylor's only 2 goals behind Ross Stewart in the top scorer stakes. I think Stewart hasn't been getting many goals recently. He's not been playing at his best. I'd like to see Stewart score for us, but I think Taylor will be on the mark as well. I'll take a 2-2, but I'd like to see Wednesday drop points. And if Burton could do something against Plymouth, so much the better.
I think I can see it for both here. You know, Gary got his old timers flat cap on and saying, "Yeah, it's a draw," and then
that's about right.
You got the youth going, "Yeah, come on, it's a win." And I mean, I could genuinely see both. I think I could. I do agree with you, Gary. I think it could well easily be 2-2. I could definitely see that. But there's just sometimes I do get a little hunch before a game. And usually I have a feeling if it's going to be one of them games or if it's going to be one of the other games. But I have a feeling I think we're going to keep our good streak and I think we're going to win 2-0. I'd be delighted. That's my hot take. But
I would love it if we beat them.
You know, if it's 2-2 or we get beat 3-1, then, you know, don't come running to me saying...
I remember people saying before we played Wigan, people were saying we're going to win at Wigan, and I laughed at that. And somebody said 3-0 at Wigan. I nearly fell off my chair. So I'm not going to diss it. I'll just say I'm happy. Whatever it is you're drinking there, Ben, I'm going to have some of that and focus on the positives instead.
Yeah, well, see, we haven't had the many years out of heartache that you have, Gary. That's the thing. Like
I've been hurt too many times.
Yeah. Give us 5 more games, and we might be on top of you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you and me dad, Gary, are like exactly the same. Like, just don't know why you get your hopes up. I don't know why you do it to yourself and all of this, but you've got to, haven't you? It's part of the.
Oh, we still keep coming back. That's the thing. Yeah. For all we moan about it, we still watch them. So you know, it is what it is. I make no excuses.
But you know. What can we do? We're too emotionally attached to our club, and I don't think necessarily that is a bad thing. But
blinded by love, that's what we are.
Yes, yeah, blinded by love. It has to be that because it can't be much else, can it, Tom?
It's not common sense, is it?
No, it's blind stupidity.
Yeah, stupidity. Yeah. And well, on that bombshell, I think we will call it a day there. So. Just want to shout out some more people in the live chat. Hanny95's in there. Old Dom's been commenting. Chris Scott's in there. Colin Major. Thane was in there for a bit. Hello, Thane. Thane's got his own channel as well. Does some really good videos. So do go and give him a like and a follow. And Acacia again. We started and we'll end with you, Acacia. So thank you for joining us. Thank you to everyone for joining. If you're watching live or catching up. And we will see you next week for another edition of Fans React Friday. And hopefully 6 points as well. So take care. Have a lovely weekend. And we'll see you next time.